Hello everyone, welcome to the MudRoom, our weekly free Uncommon Sense parenting class. How is everyone this week? I hope that spring has sprung for you. It's my husband's birthday tomorrow, and that's always kind of my signpost. If we can get through his birthday without snow, we're golden, so fingers crossed. This is the first pre-recorded MudRoom class, but remember, you can absolutely still leave comments and questions in the comments. I absolutely 100% read every single comment and answer all of them, so don't be shy. Before we jump into our topic today, though, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Allana Robinson, and I'm a parenting coach for parents of toddlers, preschoolers, and kindergartners. I help you understand why your children are misbehaving and how to fix it without yelling, shaming, or timeouts. I'm your host here on the MudRoom. I'm also the host of the Parenting Posse Facebook group, and I'm the creator of the Parentability program, where I help you raise well-behaved kids of your own. No matter where you're catching this class from, please make sure that you like and subscribe so that you never miss another class. It also helps us reach more parents who need support. All right, today we're talking about boredom. Back in February, we had a class on why I believe that virtual learning really isn't the best choice for children under age 6. And during that class, we talked about how terrified parents seem to be of their children being bored. It's up with one of the top questions I get from parents. How do we prevent our children from getting bored? And I understand where you're coming from, because bored kids get into shit. They ask for 1,000 snacks, they yell, they jump on furniture, they climb things that they shouldn't be climbing, and they make messes. And as a mother who works from home full-time and who has 2 very busy little boys home with her full-time, I get it. I really, really do. But I want us to look at what boredom really is, why it's important that our children experience it, and what they learn from it, and also why we're so scared of it. So first things first, you should know that there is a biology to boredom. When we get overstimulated from being over-entertained and we run out of energy, our body will produce cortisol to allow us to continue experiencing the entertainment, which, in my experience, a lot of parents find really surprising. They assume that when kids get tired, they'll stop. And if they're watching a movie and they get tired, they'll fall asleep. If they're running around outside and get tired, they'll sit down and take a break. If they're playing a social game and they get tired, they'll excuse themselves and go look at a book or something. But that requires a lot of interoception and being aware of our arousal level, which most adults struggle with, let alone a 2 to 6-year-old child. If the brain is being stimulated, it's getting hits of these feel-good hormones called peptides, and it wants to keep feeling good. So when it gets tired, it produces cortisol, which is emergency energy, and that keeps us alert enough to keep engaging with the entertainment, which keeps giving us peptide hits. And this is all well and good until the entertainment stops. And now we feel, for lack of a better word, yucky, because we're full of cortisol and we're not getting any peptides anymore. So now our brain produces another hormone called dopamine. Dopamine makes us seek. It makes us look for opportunities for peptides. This whole process is what is happening when you're trying to find something to watch on Netflix at night and nothing looks good, so you end up scrolling the catalog for an hour. That's your brain on dopamine. It's looking for something to provide you with peptides. Only with our kids, they aren't always scrolling Netflix. They're scrolling life generally. They're looking at their toys and their environment for something that will give them a peptide hit, some novelty that will take away the physical discomfort of boredom. And they're coming up short. This is usually when you hear the "I'm bored" whine. Now, if you don't know any of this, you're very likely to do the exact opposite of what is actually needed, which is to help your child calm down. You're more likely to stimulate them more, which is a problem because your child is already running on backup emergency energy. So if we don't help them calm down and refill their energy tank, they're going to hit a wall. And then you're going to find yourself in the situation that I keep hearing about over and over again, where your child isn't happy with anything that you offer. Nothing you set up for them is good enough. Even tried and true activities eventually, ending in your child either melting down or crashing out. So then what that means, that the true way to avoid boredom isn't to provide 52 Pinterest-inspired crafts, but to teach our children to recognize when they're running low on energy and need to take a break, which is what we do in Parentability. The entire first month of your membership, we're focusing on helping our children recognize when they're stressed and how to teach them to calm down. That said, that doesn't mean your child will never be bored again. Most adults still have times when we miss our own cues and we get overstimulated. And that's not actually a bad thing, because boredom presents an opportunity for us to self-regulate. The very fact that we're bored means that there's no easy or quick way to solve our problems, so it opens up this prime time for creativity. We start seeing possibilities in objects, our environment, and ideas that we weren't able to see before. And this very open, seeking, creative state means that whatever we eventually land on after being bored often results in opportunities to problem solve, innovate, and practice persistence. All of which are qualities and experiences many parents pay huge amounts of money for to cultivate in their child, usually through extracurriculars. So if boredom can be avoided, and when it does happen, it's not even that bad for us, why are we all so scared of it? Well, for one, boredom is not just mentally uncomfortable, it's physically uncomfortable. It feels yucky. Being dysregulated does not feel good. And if you grew up in the late 80s to late aughts, you were fed that fantastical expectation that you should never experience any discomfort at all. We were the participation trophy kids. So when we should have been practicing feeling disappointment in the safe realm of childhood, we weren't. So now as adults, it's not just uncomfortable, but it's also really unfamiliar. We don't know what to do with it. Which leads me into the second reason we're scared of boredom, Marion Diamond. Diamond is one of the mothers of neuroscience, and in the 60s, she was running experiments on rats in her lab to figure out what kind of stimulation made them smarter. And she published findings that said that rats that lived in an enriched environment had bigger, thicker, more complex neocortexes, which is where our language, executive functions, reason, and knowledge all live in our brain. In other words, they were smarter. And this idea that if children are always in enriched environments, they'll be smarter, took hold very, very quickly in popular culture. Our parents got the idea that if we're not constantly having enriched experiences, then we're going to be dumb. Enriched how? Generally with academics. With engagement, bright lights, flashing colors, lots of stimulation. But when we actually look into the research, it shows that the kind of enrichment that made the rats get smarter was that they were engaged in a lot of social play. It wasn't passive enrichment of the environment with lots of cool stuff for them to look at and do that made them smarter. It was playing with each other. All of this to say, boredom is uncomfortable, and we got the wrong message that unless our children are being constantly stimulated, they'll be stupid. So the idea that our child is lacking stimulation isn't just annoying now, it's terrifying. But it's not the truth. So what should you do if your child is whining that they're bored? Give them some loose parts and some space to be creative. Encourage them to daydream. Encourage them to go do something you know is calming for them. I discovered about a month ago that if my youngest is bored and I tell him to go sort the Lego by color, he'll start by sorting, But before you know it, he's found a piece that inspires him and he will create the coolest stuff. Lego is very, very calming for my boys. So if I say, go play Lego, they feel a lot of pressure to come up with a plot or an idea for them to build. Whereas if I give them a mindless task with the Lego, like sorting it by color, it's mindless enough that they can still daydream, they're still interacting with the calming thing, and then they can go wherever their mind takes them. My oldest likes to run to calm down, so I often send him for a walk when he's bored. Usually he'll find a stick or a cool rock or something, and by the time he comes back, he's got a fully formed plot in his mind and he's playing his own game. For little ones, often doing things involving water play or paint or crayons or white paper is a good place to start. Give them that blank slate. I got so much work done when my two were younger by setting them up in a dry bathtub with tempera paint. My office is right across the hall from our main bathroom, so I could work in here and keep an eye on them in there. And usually they'd go in going, ugh, no paint, bored. And after a few minutes, they'd have a whole masterpiece going in there. Or send them outside. That's one reason I am so thankful that we have finally hit spring. My boys know now that if they say they're bored, I'm most likely to say, then go outside. Outside is a perfectly balanced sensory environment, and it rarely takes long for inspiration to strike out there. The problem is that many of us haven't created safe space in our home for our children to play independently. We haven't set up our environments for success. So we try to avoid boredom because our homes aren't set up to protect against bored 3-year-olds who are trying to get a peptide hit by eating a whole box of honeycombs. So by changing how we respond to boredom, we are most likely going to have to do a serious inventory of how our homes are set up to ensure that we can give our children the space to be bored, especially if they're going to be unsupervised because we have to work. The good news is that as your children get more used to being bored, they'll learn the boundaries and you'll actually get to work longer, because when a child gets involved in something after being bored, they generally become absorbed in it for quite a while. We just have to get through that discomfort first while they learn to navigate it. So what do you think? Do you see boredom in a different light now? I'd love to know if you've allowed your children to get bored up until now, and if not, if that's going to change. If you're needing support on how to introduce and navigate boredom with your kids, please come join us in the Parenting Posse. We'd love to help you figure it out. And if you'd like to learn more about how to help your child regulate and how regulation intertwines with a couple other factors to make or break good behavior, make sure you get on the waitlist for Parentability, and you'll be the first to know the next time registration opens up. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you again next week for another Uncommon Sense Parenting class. Bye.